What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Lethal Introspection Podcast, where this week the crew dives into Martin Scorsese's The Departed. And before we get to our initial impressions, I want to apologize in advance for all of the terrible Boston accents that are going to be littered throughout this podcast.
No.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to everybody involved. Anyway, so yeah, Jose, this is your first time. Why don't you give us a little bit of your first impressions?
Oh yeah. Holy shit, this movie was good, man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Honestly. I can totally understand why people have been recommending this movie for the past 15 years. And yeah, I'm just a moron for not having listened whatsoever. So I'm glad that I'm a wiser man today than I was yesterday.
Hannah, yeah, you've seen this before. I know because I made you watch it, but coming off fresh, what are you feeling?
Yeah, I love this movie. I love it as much as I did the first time I watched it.
Mm-hmm. Sweet. Well, let's just dive right in then. I know Jose has been choking back his commentary ever since the credits finished rolling, so we can either start from the beginning or wherever you want to jump in. What are you thinking, buddy?
Yeah, let's just start from the very beginning because I think what I find the most interesting about this movie, to probably no one's surprise, is the social commentary. And in order to be able to really get into it, you have to start from the very beginning of, it's interesting, like the victims' lives to a particular degree, because, Colin Sullivan, Matt Damon's character, even though he does become the rat that is the main pivot and facet of Costello's operations and movements, at least as far as we understand, right? Is, and for all intents and purposes, if you look at the movie and give everybody their due, a victim, right? I mean, he was an impressionable child who grew up in a particular neighborhood wherein he saw the way the power structure was pivoted, and he was made to see it firsthand, and he was given, the the good side of it, and for the most part, it would appear, right, we can infer that he was pretty much shielded away from the darker aspects of Costello's business. He was just like, you go to school, you know what I mean? You come by, we'll give you a little work every once in a while. You'll be part of the crew, but you never get dirty. We need you clean. That was his section. That was his job, essentially, in the con, is to be the straight man the entire way through, right? And although obvious, and this is obviously, eventually there comes a point when you can begin to pass judgment on him for the choices that he is beginning to make. I always find it so interesting, the fact that, when's that day happen? You know what I mean?
When is the switch flipped?
Yeah, exactly. When is it exactly that he gains autonomous agency entirely in order to be able to say, oh, you're a bad person now. This is, you know what I mean? And the things that you are doing, you know what I mean, are bad. Obviously, it does eventually happen. I'm not trying to like be like a horribly moral relativist and be like, oh no, he was a victim from the very beginning, so everything he did is,
it's society's fault he's the rat.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just interesting to consider, like, when exactly is it that you start to view him in that way? Because regardless of how much affection he might have had for Costello, let's say, just, from maybe a Stockholm Syndrome-esque situation.
It was like a father figure, I think.
I mean, it had to have been, right? I mean, we're talking about decades worth of a relationship.
I think the beginning of the movie sort of implies that Colin's father has recently died. And so Costello's sort of stepping in.
Yep, exactly. Because he asks him, he's like, oh yeah, you went to the funeral.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So obviously Costello is an evil man. He is actively, like a wolf, hunting and preying upon the vulnerable in order to be able to either extort them, like the store owner, like the very meek store owner, what I mean, who would be okay with a man walking in by himself into his store and accosting his 14-year-old daughter and then just standing there, Like, it's understandable if the man is afraid of consequences, but there is a particular level of meekness, I feel, that is in play when you literally aren't even instinctually like driven to that like fight mechanic, you know, especially for your own daughter, you know. It's like, I have no children, you know, but I can only imagine that the biological markers of having your progeny being accosted right in front of you would make it so I would feel blind about it. You know what I mean? Like the rage would be blind. Like, fuck the consequences in that way. This guy has to fucking die. You know, maybe that, and obviously that's a short-sighted way of looking at it. You know, there could be, you know, that man might have actually made the right decision in the long run by not incurring that wrath, obviously. But it is still just interesting to, you know, view it in the moment as the moment is happening, like the movie showcases to you, right? And the fact that that is essentially the male figures that he sees, you know what I mean? If we're, you know, if we're taking the movie as the, you know, as the gem it is, you know what I mean? That facet showcases the fact that that is what Sullivan viewed between, you can be a very meek man, right, who gets pushed around by others, or you can follow this wolf, be part of his pack, and, you know, have his protection along with the potentiality of maybe one day, you know, leading the pack. That's just the beginning aspect.
Yeah, that's the very first nugget. Yeah, very well said. Yeah. Yeah, it's a shame that we don't get to see, I was thinking, Costigan's sort of childhood, or at least little glimpses into it, you know.
I actually think it's a very interesting directorial choice from Scorsese's part, in the sense that he does the showing first for one character, for one main protagonist, right? Because this is a dual protagonist situation.
Yeah.
You know, and then the other one is Tell, you know? So he's like, he gave you the cake and ate it too at the same time. And all the while, though, making it far, far more intense in the Tell scene than in the actual showing. Because in the showing, there's a lot of cinematic ambiguity that happens to it, you know, like that's one of the things that cinema can do. It's like they can make a very evil moment seem absolutely pleasant and nonchalant, as long as the right music is playing, as long as the right you know, the right angles are being given, you know, and as for all and the right lighting. And for all intents and purposes, the, you know, coming of age section for Sullivan looked you know, bright and shiny. You know, there was no even though you knew he was dealing with a bad person, there was no visual indicators at the beginning that was the case, you know, as opposed to I would feel maybe a less confident movie, you know, would give you the you know, where it would give you like just a light little bit of like flashing to the side, and there's like something that's like not right, you know. And but this one is just like, no, we got 2.5 hours. We can do the whole thing. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have to give away the magic trick right now. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's a great. You know, I'm just thinking like, leave it to Leo to bring the most tortured looking like South Boston kid's face ever to the screen in our very first like sit down with him and the two cops, Marky Mark and the other guy. Yeah.
Who?
Marky Mark?
Marky Mark and who?
And Queenan.
Hey. He does know.
I mean,
names.
the man fell off a building. Remember his name.
I'll remember his. Yeah. His name was Queen.
Yeah, no, I really liked the good cop, bad cop dynamic of Dignam and Queenan at the beginning, especially just the, I don't know, even though it's their first scene ever with these characters, the fact that Queenan is so okay with letting Dignam off the leash in the way that he does showcases a lot of like familiarity between them. You know what I mean? Like, he knows exactly how far he'll push that button and how far he'll go on that line, but he's doing it with a point. He's not just being an asshole. You know what I mean? Like, there is like, at least I would imagine in Queenan's view of what Dignam is doing, you know what I mean? He isn't just seeking to get a rise out of this guy. He is literally trying to see if this is all just an act, you know, if you really are, if like, again, the the visual irony of the fact that the actual rat is getting a promotion while the clean cop is being actively harassed and interrogated is just, you know, really beautiful.
Yeah, how fucked up are you, really?
Yeah, while that other guy is just fucking, you know, eyeing up and flirting with his coworkers, like.
That bugs me. You cannot whistle at your coworkers in the office building.
Yeah,
the bygone years of 2004.
Oh God, we've come so far.
Well, I mean, we don't live in Boston, so I mean, we don't exactly know exactly.
Maybe that's still happening.
Yeah, exactly what the dynamic is out there. You know,
yeah, it's a little looser in Boston.
Yeah.
So yeah, we get we're introduced to our two main protagonists, and then we sort of get a peek behind the curtain at the rest of the bad guy crew. Jack Nicholson bringing the fucking hammer is the craziest face on screen since he was in The Shining in 1980 whatever.
It just looked like he was having the time of his life.
Yeah, he really does seem like he enjoys
It's
what
like,
he
I
does.
get to be who? You know,
He's so good at evil.
And crazy.
Yeah, just like that chaotic evil kind of situation. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, he pretty much gives away his character build. You know what I mean? In the movie, he's like, I don't need the money. I just like the, you know what I mean? He's an adrenaline junkie at the end of the day.
Do you suppose that we saw Jack Nicholson's penis, or do you think it was a penis stand-in?
For what?
That was a dildo.
No, that was a dildo.
It was a dildo?
In the theater.
And it was very
so
brown.
Yeah. It was.
What was dark in there? In my defense.
No, I'm pretty sure it was a stand-in.
Yeah, I don't think
I've
Jack
watched this
Nicholson
twice, and
is
both times I thought that was a
flashing.
real penis. It was so quick.
We telling people at holiday parties, like, do you know Jack Nicholson has a really big black penis?
I thought it looked like purple.
He's got like some sort of reverse
in the
vitiligo
lighting.
down there.
Reverse vitiligo.
There's just a lot of blood down there, maybe. I don't
A
know.
lot of blood.
Oh,
It's just enough time for you to go penis and nothing else. That's what I think.
All right, and this is around the time when we get to my personal sore spot in the movie, the Dr. Madden lady.
Oh, Vera Ferminga.
Goodness gracious, I did not like her character, not because of her character exactly, but because she felt so shoehorned in. You know, let me begin from the top as to why I feel that way. You know, initially they show her having this, like, you know, I don't know, like, it there's just this weird, like, shoehorning in of like an issue that she has with Sullivan. You know, it, like, after the first or second meeting with Costigan, you know, it somehow it just flips over to now she's got like these like reservations about the guy that she's dating, and all of a sudden now there's like this little opening for Costigan to like begin, like, you know, just wearing down the armor of her, you know, of like the relationship that they got going on. And unfortunately, at least maybe this is just my first viewing. You guys have seen this movie multiple times, and you guys can maybe set me straight here. You know, we literally go from the scene where she moves in with him, you know, to then being like, oh, I don't know, I have reservations now. Like, and honestly, to me, I was like, what is happening here? You know, like, it felt like such an obvious manufactured plot convenience that was necessary in order for Costigan to have an eventual internal in to be able to have the end happen. And even without me knowing the end, right, which was, again, fucking awesome, very unexpected, but at the same time, I still saw what they were, you know what I mean, like that weird, manufacturing of an issue.
So
Now, please set me straight.
I mean, I can, no, first of all, I agree and disagree with you, to be honest. As much as that does seem ham-fisted, I can also see it just being kind of realistic, because She might have, I mean, I'm sure there are doubts in your mind moving in with anybody 4 months into your relationship, but probably nothing came up yet that was like tangible or provable. But I do think that you can be incentivized by the person that you're talking to. Like, she wouldn't want to say, like, I'm moving in with him and everything's going great, because I think she didn't want him to just up and leave and give up. So I can see it coming up in that conversation as like her creaking the door open for him a little bit, because she clearly cares about him. But her whole character being put into the story, I don't know. Part of me feels like it's just an extra thing for the two rats to have in common, you know? And it's like it's stretching the realms of reality a little bit there.
Yeah. I mean, I personally don't have an issue with the concept of her eventually beginning to have, say, doubts about Sullivan, right? Because
he can't get it up. I mean,
huh?
Well, he can't get it up.
Yeah, that was the only hint.
not only that, right? But at the same time, it's like they both say that they're really good liars. You know, I feel that in a 2.5-hour movie, there could have been at least one scene prior to her meeting up with Costigan and having that little, that little vulnerability moment, you know what I mean? Where like he asks her to go out for dinner, maybe a scene or two beforehand where like they are talking to each other, you know what I mean? About like, say, about whatever, you know what I mean? But it's very obvious that neither one of them wants to be 100% honest with them, you know what I mean? To the degree that it bugs them, you know? Because that doesn't come up. Even that scene that I'm talking about does come up later, but it comes up once he's talking on the phone with the guy and she's already moved in, and it's been like what, 7-8 months by that point? And that was before, you know what I mean? She had sex with Costigan and like actively moved in. Like she was still in that whole 3-week section, you know what I mean, of her transference, right? By the time they had that interaction, it'd been months by that point, right? Or at least 2, let's say.
In my like movie magic band-aiding brain, I imagine that might it be the case that if you live with somebody who has been lying since they were a child and is actually like deeply, deeply disturbed at the things that they do for their work. And, I just get that from like him like crying at the end. But regardless, you live with somebody like this. It's like criminal psych or not, like you probably pick up on like, oh, this person, like, I think they're hiding something. Like this is a weird thing to see. Yeah. Like you probably pick up on these little things and they start to cause these reservations in your mind of like, oh, that was like a weird thing he said the other day and he was acting real shifty or,
She didn't say they had problems. She said she had doubts.
Yeah.
Which I think can be as simple as like, I feel a little bit uncomfortable sometimes.
For sure. I mean, it's an interpersonal section of the movie that, I feel could have been a little bit better handled. But at the end of the day, it's still a story, and there are still moving parts that are needed in order for the story to be 100% moved forward. Is what I would say. All right, if we ever knew what the fuck was inside of that envelope that was given to her.
Oh, before you get to that, I have to say, an excuse for that character just being in the movie, it offered up to us the like most gut-wrenching acting I've ever seen come out of Leonardo DiCaprio in that scene where she gives him the 2 pills. It's like, why don't you just give me a bottle of fucking scotch and a gun?
Yeah.
Oh, just outstanding. Outstanding. Anyway, yeah, the envelope, very frustrating. I don't know if that was meant to be something like what eventually came in the mail for Colin that he was meant to open. Like it was like, I don't know, some sort of evidence to be like, hey, I'm William Costigan. This guy's the rat, blah, blah, blah.
I'm confused. I thought the letter that she got in the mail in like the later time.
The white package with the CD.
I thought it was just a letter that said open it. So she opened her old package.
No, she opened up the white envelope. It was a white package that she opened when he turned on the shower head.
Yeah.
And in it was the CD. And I would imagine probably more CDs.
Probably.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the ultrasound picture.
What?
Mm-hmm.
But what? Costigan gave her the letter. I mean, the envelope.
The manila envelope, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I've got it all mixed up. I always thought that it was the CD in it, so I'm totally confused.
No,
Because
you
why
raise a
would
good
they
point.
incorporate an envelope in there that they wouldn't open? I feel like something was missed.
He says something
because this
like,
is a poor use of a red herring. Because that's not even a red herring. Because
Yeah.
I mean, like,
yeah, what is it?
what?
Maybe like something was cut and that snuck through or something, like an extra 30-second scene.
Every once in a while, it does feel like there are a couple extra scenes missing from this movie.
Oh, yeah.
I will say,
Yeah.
I
It's-
wouldn't. I mean, I can only imagine there's probably like 7 hours worth of actual filming for this movie. You know what I mean? And then chopped down to
Right.
the 2.5.
3 hours down to 2.5.
Mhm.
Or, yeah. Yeah, he does say something when he gives it to her along the lines of, "You're the only person that I can trust." So I don't know. It has to be something either incriminating of her boyfriend or what are you reading?
I'm reading the Wikipedia plot for the movie, right?
Yeah.
And I'm getting to this point. And okay, it says Sullivan then erases Costigan's records, right? And Costigan hands Madeline, who has moved in with Sullivan, an envelope and instructs her to open it if something happens to him. Later, she opens a different letter containing the tape Costello made
Damn.
of himself with Sullivan, listens to them and leaves. And then nothing comes of it.
So even the author of the Wikipedia article is sick of this shit.
Okay. Check this out. The very last sentence. When he arrives home, Dignam is waiting, informed by Madeline, and proof Costigan had her hold on to. Okay, so Wikipedia. All right, so we take it with the grain of salt that we are supposed to. All right, but I am supposed to be led to believe or infer that a psychiatrist, all right, who is supposed to be a trained individual who supersedes the empathy and necessities, you know what I mean, of others, would be okay with putting out a hit on a guy, even to the degree that, yeah, maybe he did get a couple people killed, but again, I mean,
She probably didn't put out a hit on him. I would think that it probably said in the letter to talk to Dignam because he was the only other living person who would know about it.
Oh,
And then he went rogue, would be my guess.
yeah, she told Dignam, and Dignam was like, "Well, I'm
okay,
gonna go fucking
thank you.
kill him."
Yeah, thank you.
This motherfucker. Yeah.
Yeah, as an ex-police officer, I certainly know how to kill somebody.
Let me
I
get
gotta
my
get
booties.
this. Yeah, that's exactly where I was going.
Get my non-distinct blue cap.
Yeah, you bringing that up, it is sort of a double-edged sword of the way that Scorsese uses the super quick cut in scene juxtaposition throughout the movie, because it's beneficial in the sense that it's super driving. It makes a 2.5-hour movie seem like an hour 40 or so.
Pacing is amazing.
Yeah.
Great.
The music quick cuts too, the in and out, the super loud only good song by Dropkick Murphys, and then cut out.
I love the Irish themed music in this movie. I thought it was phenomenal.
But then it also does kind of work against itself in the sense that like there's some of that, I don't know, transitional knowledge that's lost, that it sounds like that was just straight up cut from the movie and maybe filled in by the director later. But
yeah, perhaps there's a director's cut that we're not being privy to.
I've never heard of one. You'd think I would. You'd think I'd heard of that.
I'm willing to put money on the fact that there's not a director's cut just because you don't know about one.
Yeah. That plus, of course, Scorsese being the director, be like, what are you talking about? That is the cut.
That's my cut.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
2.5 hours. What do you want?
Yeah, exactly.
You see these eyebrows? Get the fuck out of here.
Exactly. Yeah. Small niggles, biting at the ankles of a great giant, for sure, because the rest of the movie is really fucking solid. It's just unfortunate because that is such a throwaway aspect that, almost didn't seem necessary if the end result was for Dignam to kill the guy, to kill Sullivan. I could have seen that happen 100 different ways more organically than the inference that I am being led to make right now. You know?
But I love that Dignam did it, because exactly what you said at the beginning of the podcast is you said there's a subtle nod to a strong relationship between
Yes.
Queenan and Dignam.
Very much so.
And in some ways, I think the ending happened because Dignam was so upset about Queenan dying.
Oh, 100%. I agree with that 100%. I mean, I would like to go back to what I said. I feel that a guy like Queenan, would only restrain himself to the assholery that he showcases, because he's got that kind of respect for not only the chain of command, let's say, but Queenan as his superior officer. Because I mean, I don't even think it's chain of command. I'll take that back, actually, because there's plenty of other people who seem to outrank him, who he doesn't give a fuck if what he says to him. You know,
people
what I mean?
like that don't do chain of command. They do earned respect.
Yeah, exactly, and like die hard, undying, loyalty to that degree. So
like a German Shepherd, once you've got him, you've got him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and he will not. Yeah, he won't let go of your side, even because I would imagine for those past 2 weeks, he probably got into his apartment. He's like, we're gonna fucking find out. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, there's probably another movie right there. You know what I mean? Like,
I would watch it.
Yeah. Like, literally, you could start the movie from the moment he's like, you got your 2 weeks. Be like, okay.
It's all I need.
So how long do you think it was between the moment that Queenan got the 2 weeks and him committing the act?
Dignam.
Sorry, I keep fucking that up.
Just call him Marky Mark.
Yeah, Marky
Mark. Good question. Take some time to plan a funeral.
Well, okay. I believe in the final scene with Matt Damon, he still has the busted lip from Costigan smacking his face with the gun. So it can't have been long. Couple days.
Okay.
Not more than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So he was probably.
And how long was it from the 2 weeks to him being up on that roof?
Oh, Queenan dying and then everything else transpiring.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, I think it's just a couple days.
Right?
Yeah.
It's got to take very minimal time to find out that you don't have your identity.
Right. Yeah.
And I imagine that's when something would get triggered.
So, okay, we jumped the middle section of the movie, which is totally fine. But I mean,
the middle section of the movie is just such, it really is just a gun, just fucking chucking and chucking of gunpowder for the very end. You know what I mean? Situation.
I wanted to highlight my probably the favorite aspect of the movie for me, aside from all the star-studded acting that takes place, is what I think is maybe the greatest cat and mouse crime thriller sequence ever to take place between Costigan and Sullivan for like a solid 45 minutes, where they're just always they're like 4D chess in their head on top of each other, trying to Costigan's trying to feed. And then he's like trying to stop everything from the outside. Sullivan's trying to stop everything from the outside. Oh, it's just.
It set up this really cool situation because, like, in many ways, that's the centerpiece of the movie. Like, they're both being used. They're both pawns for, like, the other, whatever side of it they're on. And they're both motivated with their lives to find each other to make sure that they don't die. And that's awesome.
Yeah.
Pretty powerful tool. Yeah, not dying.
Yeah, I
personally like it.
I think it's really cool too. I really now want to see the Hong Kong original version. Yeah, I don't know if you had heard, Hannah, when we were talking, but this movie is a remake of a movie called Internal Affairs, that is a Hong Kong, that was originally made in Hong Kong. So I am wondering, right? Like I like now knowing this, I am being really, really tame with my praise, because I don't exactly know how much of the sauce in this movie is something that already happened in the original, but just given the Western flavor that makes it that extra bit of, spicy and palatable to us particularly, you know.
If it doesn't have Dropkick Murphys, I'm out.
I don't know exactly if they have an Irish mafia in Hong Kong, but hey, crime goes everywhere.
Yeah. Some banger
Imagine if
crime
it's the
music.
same exact situation.
That'd be great.
I mean, who would it be? Would it be the Mongolese mafia? Does Mongolia have a mafia? You know what I mean? Is it Thailand? Like,
Yeah, I have no idea.
yeah.
Are we even going to understand? I guess we know the sort of bones of the story already, so that should help.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, there's just something that's gnawing at me from, gushing about the movie, knowing that it's not an original work now, because, I mean, I can kind of understand that it isn't, because this kind of feels like the kind of work that you build on. You know what I mean? Like, like a first movie, would get it pretty right, but then a really good and apt director like Scorsese would watch that really good movie and be like, oh, fuck yeah, we can really run with that, know? And, just reiterative works like a Shakespearean theater, like every single generation or creative mind that takes the reins of that particular idea, runs it in their way. But because the bones are so strong, it's very difficult to fuck it up in the same way that as long as you get all the lines right, you can still get a pretty good Hamlet, play out of anybody, as long as they're not fucking up the lines,
You think the line, do you think they're similar to that degree?
What do you? I have not seen the original. I'm just saying that if the bones of the movie are, that strong, that a reiteration, in another culture, would still have the same kind of zest and pow, even then.
I'm thinking of, even though it's not directly analogous, something like Nolan's Batman trilogy. You already got the characters, and the framework of the story is laid out. Everybody knows it.
Like, having watched that, Indian film, that Hindi film not too long ago, like I'm picturing, like, now with a little bit of the tiny little minuscule understanding of what I have about their cultural views about the movies, right? I could see this movie's theme and like story being applied, in their flavor, and it also being a really fucking great movie,
Oh yeah,
like
it's a great story.
Yeah, like there might be a little extra, like they would have their own music, they would have their own situation. I mean, we already know Hindi people do bad guys really fucking well.
Oh yeah, yeah. You hire Neil deGrasse Tyson,
yeah,
you're good to go.
Yeah, you get
top
top billing.
They don't even have to change. Yeah, so just hire Neil deGrasse Tyson for the English version.
I'm wondering how long it's going to take for there to be another iteration of The Departed in that way.
I bet you,
because it's a crime procedural for the most part, right? I mean, like, it just so happens to happen in Boston, but you really can't splice this situation anywhere because there's crime everywhere. Huh? No, what's up?
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, part of me wonders, because part of me thinks that will take a long time to happen just because, like, I don't know. Like, I work in software, and one of the things that gets bounced around a lot is, like, we don't compete with Microsoft. We don't compete with Google's. We try to do something that's our own so that we can get a foothold. So I think that things that have really blown up have been really, really good. It takes longer for someone to try to do the same thing again.
I'm also thinking, I was just thinking while you're saying that, like, do you really want to be the guy who is like, you know what, Scorsese did a pretty good job, but I think I got a new angle.
That's the thing, right? The person who comes to mind is Quentin Tarantino in that way.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Somebody who is willing to point upward and be like, I'm going to home run this motherfucker. And I'm going to use all of the iterative talent that was used in the past to intermesh it and then give you something new with it.
You also have to upcast though, and like, how do you?
Oof.
Because the acting really brings this movie over the line. Like, how do you upcast over this?
That isn't that what every generation says though. At the end of the day, I mean, the greatest stars happen in our lifetime because those are the people we get to see, right?
Yeah.
And I would imagine that yes, a long time probably might have to happen. Might have to go by in order for there to be maybe every individual in this movie needs to die first before that like becomes 100% a good play.
I think so. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I can see it. I can most certainly see that, like, a couple years after any one of them fucking dies. I mean, shit. Like, let's just say Jack Nicholson first, just because I mean, just based on the age game. Give it 10 years after Jack Nicholson's death. The next individual who shows those kind of chops, can have that situation.
Yeah, I didn't mean as like a grand scheme thing. I meant if like Tarantino were to try to do it.
Oh yeah, no. I'm just no, and yeah, I'm not even giving it to Tarantino. I'm just saying that archetype of director, you know what I mean? Who is almost deluded enough to believe that he can do a good enough job and then fucking does it. You know what I mean? Like, it's like that kind of situation. Like, unfortunately, you do have to believe in yourself to an almost nauseating degree in order to be able to get anything done in that way. Because you're already going to have, haters, critics, and every bypass, every layman individual who's seen the original movie being like, I don't know, man,
Yeah, you're reminding me of, we haven't gotten to it on the podcast yet. We will in a year or two when the next one comes out, but the new Dune, can you imagine trying to step into the shoes of what is maybe the quintessential sci-fi cult classic novel being readapted for the, I don't know, 8th or 9th time and going point to the moon, like you said, here we go. Yeah. And having it be successful. Because there's a lot of people that thought that movie was going to flop big time.
Yeah.
But there you go.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and the reason why it's been reiterated 8 or 9 times is because everyone understands that it's our execution that fucks it up. The bones are great, you know what I mean? We're terrible liches, you know what I mean? We're not reanimating this fucking corpse correctly, Yeah, one day there will be an adept enough necromancer who could make this fucking corpse dance, and it'll be beautiful.
Yeah, when Scorsese is rolling over in his grave, probably right around then.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, when I was a bit deliberate when it comes to kind of skipping the middle aspect of the movie, because even though it is juicy and very meaty and very integral to the end of the movie, I can't really think of that many things to talk about for it.
Well, we worked our way towards the end anyway. We have the beautiful closure scene that we all desperately needed for this movie to wrap up peacefully in our minds, I think.
I would have been so angry.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, I was getting thematic blue balls quite hard as he was walking up to his apartment. I was like, okay, well, I'm a man who loves a bummer, but hot damn. Good job, Scorsese. I was like, this was like the quintessential thematic edging, really. Like,
I think
and the climax happens.
I'm gonna start a petition to change the name of the podcast to Theatrical Blue Balls. Is that what
it doesn't happen in every movie,
Cinematic Blue Balls?
Yeah. I mean, we'd only have to do movies like this.
Or cinematic edging.
Yeah, there's a reason that when I think of, and I'm glad to hear you praise this movie as much as you have in the past 40 minutes or so, but there is definitely a reason when I think of my favorite movies of all time that this movie always comes to the forefront of my mind. It's from the star-studded acting to the awesome pacing, the music, the characters. I, you know, you kept tipping your hat, I should say, during the watching of the movie of like, you're like, oh, this movie's fucking awesome. This movie's great. Keep it going. There was no reservations, which is not the usual when we're watching flicks. I don't even think I heard you sort of do your mental forecasting out loud, because you sort of do that pretty often, especially on the slower, poor made flicks maybe. But so that must mean something. That's got to count for something.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to feel like a fool because I didn't know where the fuck the movie was going. You know what I mean? I usually like I only usually like to call them out when they're easy. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, like just so we can have a laugh later about having mentioned it, But yeah, this one, like after Costigan got shot in the elevator, I was quiet the whole fucking time. I was like, where is this movie gonna go? I was like, God damn.
Was the teeth a main character? No,
yeah, exactly.
The first time I watched this movie, I was totally distraught.
Isn't Sullivan a bad guy?
Yeah, you took it really hard, I remember.
It really bummed me out. I was so invested in that character. And like, I'm thrilled because the movie's fantastic, and I love getting caught off guard in movies. It's one of my favorite things.
One tactical thing in this movie, and that's if you're in an elevator that moves that does the doors side to side, always have the person you have handcuffed showing first.
Yep, that was a slip up.
Yeah, most certainly. I mean, he was feeling pretty good at that moment.
Oh,
He's like, I'm gonna take you in. There is something that was just a dark realization that came to me.
Okay.
In the the criminal climax, right, when the drug deal goes wrong for Costello, right? And all of his men die. Costello eventually gets gunned down. All I could think of was, good God, what a waste of fucking time. If at the end of it all, we're just going to gun this man down anyway, why couldn't we just gun this man down earlier? I mean, it as a layman individual who is not a police officer and has no experience in law enforcement, it just showcases to me that I don't have the aptitude to be a police officer or to be put in those kind of situations, because I honestly would just want to kill the bad guy. If Costigan for the past year and a half has been fearing for his life to the degree that he genuinely does believe that he might be tagged and bagged at any moment, all right, I find it commendable about his mental fortitude, but also very telling of my own about the fact that all I'm thinking about is just kill this old man. Just like he said in the diner himself, you know what I mean? Like, you're a 70-year-old man who's fucking stingy. You know what I mean? You don't even pay your people that well, It's like anybody could fucking do it. And I don't know, it just it demoralizes me as a citizen to know that these are the kind of theatrics that the police officer and that the due process system requires of us in order to be able to try to put this old ass man in prison when we know he's got more bodies than a Chinese cemetery on him. Like, it is very, very disconcerting, and that's why I called it a dark revelation, because again, I'm a 30-year-old man, I am just coming into my own into society and becoming like a genuine facet of society, I will be missed at least for a little bit, you know what I mean? Now that I'm, here in this way, and knowing the fact that the powers that be operate in this way when they are going against individuals who don't abide by that, in that way, all in order to be able to maintain, again, a theatric of morality, is so sad. So sad. What a waste of money.
Agreed. I got nothing to add to that one, Liz.
I mean, he was an informant, though. I don't think they were planning to arrest him until they absolutely had to.
But either way, that was from a federal aspect, right? He was an informant from a federal aspect. The state did not know that he was an informant. I actually took a little peek at TV tropes about this movie. And one of the fridge brilliance comments of it noted the fact that in the scene where the sting is happening, right, where he's meeting the Chinese, right, the FBI techies are sneering at the state police officers because they know that they actively sabotaged this thing on purpose because that guy is their guy. You know, on my first viewing, I totally missed that until I saw it right there. But again, the state didn't know that, right? I mean, that still leaves a shit ton of police officers like Dignam, right, who, when push comes to shove, do have the fortitude to go off Punisher, you know, and it doesn't happen, you know. I don't know. I don't know. It leaves me in a very dark ambivalence, you know, in relation to it, which is great. I mean, like, that's what I want from a movie, really. It's just, you know, to really stir me in that way. And it's like, I understand that it's a slippery slope, you know, when you allow the criminal system to become a vigilante system in that way. Like, very, very quickly, you know, bad faith actors will take the reins of the, you know, license to kill that, you know, the police department would confer upon them in that way. And and the one blip of goodness that might come from it will quickly be overshadowed by a horrible, you know, cadre of like way worse administration in that way. I see that. But as a person living in the moment, at this moment, it's still just so fucking unfortunate. You know what I mean?
It is.
That for the most part, you know, statistically speaking, as far as this movie showcases, you know, most police officers and detectives do operate in good faith.
Yeah, I'm sad too now, so thank you. No, that's that's really well said. I think you know, aside from it being like a really good movie from start to finish, that is probably how we're intended to feel, you know? Just really casting a light on the, well, like you were saying, the sort of slow cogs of justice that we have to implant for ourselves just to counter our own biases and emotions, and then also like
to keep the lynch mobs at bay.
Right. And then on the other hand, this screenshot of how violence seems to pervade and the struggle for justice is endless and ongoing, and all we can do is try to be better men to overcome it, and most of us aren't. And
right. I think it's also very interesting the layers of evil that our society has to essentially swallow to a degree, because Costello has to have been a very good informant, right? In order for him to be able to have been allowed to operate with the impunity that he was allowed to operate for so many years, right? There's a fun implication, I feel, in my opinion, right? Because it didn't have to do with the movie. It's like a more lore aspect of the movie, right? Like, this dude has been, for who knows, maybe 2 decades so far, an FBI informant, you know? And it's like, okay, how many terrorist acts has he stopped? How many potential acts of international sabotage, such as the microprocessors, have happened? You know, like, because I can only imagine, right, if we're going on inferences, that the FBI is the one who gave him those shitty, like that knockoff briefcase full of microprocessors that he then gave to the Chinese. You know, like, all of that was like the FBI was playing the long international con, you know, on the Massachusetts staties, essentially.
The biggest fish, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, like, we're putting out our, you know, our nice tuna out there, but we want fucking whale sharks, you know. We want the Chinese government caught up in this bitch, You know what I mean? So we can have some leverage next time they try to take over some of the West China, China Sea. You know what I mean? Something like that.
It is a nice reminder.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, again, dark ambivalence, right? Because it's like, how much of it do you have to swallow? And especially considering the fact that, I as a human am very easily manipulated by being showcased something visceral in that moment, right? If I'm showcased Costello killing a man, okay, in cold blood, Costello to me is now a bad man, right? Like that is just the mental shorthands that my mind goes into at that moment. My mind doesn't allow, for the appreciation, you know what I mean, of, yeah, this is a bad man, but there are way worse motherfuckers out there, and this guy might, for all intents and purposes, be a dam, to keep way worse rivers from flowing, in this way, because he needs the status quo to a particular degree, right? I mean, Costello requires the American system to work the way it does, and in order for him to be able to continue to operate the way it does, he needs to be the only brand of chaos allowed to operate, because otherwise, 70-year-old ass man gets, taken out by whatever other power that be that allows that kind of thing to happen.
A controlled chaos.
Very cool.
Very cool.
Well, I think we're probably about ready for ratings have already been spilled all over this fucking
5 out of
podcast,
5
but
for sure.
Yep, Jose giving it a 5.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Hannah, I'm sure your opinion hasn't changed at all.
No, this is 5.
Yeah, solid. All right, well, that's a 15-star fucking movie.
Yep.
And I think that's
a constellation. That's for goddamn sure.
Yeah, no shit, man. I mean, this movie came out. It's gonna be 20 years in a couple years ago now, and it should not be forgotten. This is one that I don't mind watching whenever, and I'm glad that we got to share it with you, man.
The heart thumper for sure.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's about wrapping it up for us tonight. Everybody, have a great week, and we'll see you next time.
Later, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Oh. There it goes.